Well, first of all, he lied. I begged him to come here. I said, Terry, I've got to be on that agenda. What do I have to do to be on that agenda? I'll do anything you want. But seriously, it's a great honor for me to be invited here, and I will tell you unabashedly, I think he's been the Sam Walton of retailing the last 10 or 15 years, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. He took a well-established company and made it younger and better and powerful, and that's leadership. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the Home Depot, but before I start, I want to say one thing to those 50% of the people who don't like what they're doing. If you don't hear anything from me but this, go home and quit or shut the store and move on, because you'll never succeed. Find a job. I don't care how menial it is. I don't care how lower down the rung it is. Find a job that you can't wait every single day to get up and go to work. And if you had to pay to go to work, you would pay to go to work. You'll win. Trust me, you'll win. So that's an overall shot at and I was intrigued by the previous presentation because, in fact, much of what's happened at the Home Depot the last 5 or 6 years has been driven by supply chain management and technology. And it's been profound and dramatic. And in fact, if you look at our margins, I'm happy to say those margins are going up not on the back of the customer, but instead on us running ourselves more efficiently and being better able to execute for the benefit of our customer. The customer hasn't seen in cost the benefits that we've achieved at the bottom line. And that's a win-win situation, because the better we are, the more we can spend, the more we can do for the customer. But let me I thought a little bit of what I'm out to talk about today. And I want to tell you what our underlying success is, has been, and always will be. Our people. We started with a very simple belief. And understand something, this was a rather inauspicious beginning. I had two guys who had just been fired from their jobs, Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank. Pat Farah, who had just taken bankruptcy with a company in Long Beach, California called Homeco, and me, a broken down investment banker. And I tell the story this way. I say the key to success, because Bernie was the chairman of a company called Handy Dan Home Improvement Centers in LA, which was controlled by a company called Dalen, which was being led by a not nice man by the name of Sandy Sigaloff. And I do give up names because my passion is so strong for those I like or I dislike that I would miss a great chance not to take a shot. And so I tell people, if you want to really win, get two Jews on their way to the slammer, an Irishman who just took bankruptcy, and a broken down Italian investment banker, and you're on your way. Now, that's exactly how we started, with nothing. Bernie and Arthur had no health insurance. They had no assets to speak of. Bernie was 46. Arthur was in his early 30s, and I was in my late 30s. And Pat was about 35. But we had a dream. And the dream was born of the knowledge that retail is about people. At the end of the day, it's about people. You have a much higher level of a chance of success in retail if you like being around people. Trust me, you always will buy from somebody you like. You'll even make an excuse to buy from somebody you'll like. And our equation was very simple. It was, we're going to take care of our people, and they're going to take care of our customers. Now, there were basics away from the people factor. What were they? Wide assortment, low prices, and a very high level of knowledgeable service. We wanted people that wanted to learn. We wanted people that enjoyed selling something to somebody but only what they needed. And the idea of choices was meant for the following. A guy comes in on a Saturday morning, he wants to hang some pictures on his wall, and he wants a hammer specifically for that project. He doesn't need a fiberglass handled a hammer with solid steel head for $92. He needs a little $3 hammer with a wooden handle that will drive a tack into the wall. And the fact that you showed him to what he wanted, that he needed, bonded you with that person. Because the name of the game in retail, the best sale, is the one where the guy says, I have to go back. And so we spent an inordinate amount of time and a substantial amount of money doing what we called PK classes, product knowledge classes. And if people wanted to be promoted, they had to go through these product knowledge programs. And we ran them in the store. And in many cases, the vendors came in and showed our kids, and by the way, don't be offended, Bernie and I have a simple rule. In Bernie's case, he's 85, I'm about to be 79 with allergies. Anybody under those ages is a kid, okay? So don't get pissed off if I call you a kid. Who the hell's that old bastard out here to tell me I'm a kid? But we always wanted our kids to have a sense of worth and value. And how do you begin that? It begins first and foremost with recognition of the kid as a person, as an individual, as somebody different. There are certain things we've done that I'm extremely proud of. The argument about minimum wage today in America means nothing to us. Home Depot has never, ever, ever hired in its entire history one person for minimum wage. We've always felt that the people we want were worthy of more pay than that. And we still do this, acknowledge through reviews, through promotions, through awards, their effort and their success. And with all due respect to what you heard earlier about technology, which I completely subscribe to, totally subscribe to, you'll never get away from the people factor in retail. Now, I'm going to tell you something that Terry's going to get pissed off at. You know, when I was poor, it was not hard to come up with a gift for my wife for Christmas. A rolling pin, a cutting board, you know. But when things started to get better, I couldn't say to her, honey, here's a 12-month subscription to Fruit of the Month, you know? So what did I do? I sauntered over to Saks, please forgive me. And Saks had these boutiques. And my wife always talked about Judith Lieber handbags. So I bought her a Judith Lieber handbag for Christmas. And holy Jesus, I couldn't believe the warmth of the reception I got on Christmas morning when she opened up the package. Hell, if I'd have known it was at ease, I'd have borrowed money to buy a Judith Lieber handbags. The guy's name in the store, he's now retired, his name is Lauren von Falkenberg. After I did this 1 or 2 years, all of a sudden, Lauren's calling me on the phone, typically around November, that he just got this great new Judith Lieber handbag in. And I would go right over there and I would buy it. And he was smart. He kept price pointing me higher and higher and higher and higher. But the point I'm making is it was all about Lauren von Falkenberg. And to this day, he's now retired. He lives in Fort Lauderdale. He and I exchange Christmas cards. Okay? Don't sell yourself short. At the end of the day, what I admire about what I see in Macy's is the people factor. But let me tell you a few stories about why it's important that you celebrate. If you've only got 2 people or 1 person working for you, be sure you say hello in the morning. Be sure you ask them how they feel. Be sure you're sensitive enough that if they have a personal problem, you try to reach out to them. Now this makes you say, hey, this guy's like a psychiatrist. This guy's not a retailer. Call me whatever you want. But here we are with a company with a $116 billion market cap, starting with $2 million. And let me tell you the story about creativity. When we started the company, we had $2 million. That's not very much when you want to open up 60,000 square foot stores with 50,000 SKUs and 150 associates in each store. So we go to the vendors, and the vendors are not the most courageous people sometimes. You know, if you can't pay me, well, here we are starting out, no balance sheet. The factors wouldn't even look at us, or the people would give us credit. So what do? We had enough money to buy enough product for eye level, for the customer. But we wanted to make a statement in the store. Holy smokes, look at all the merchandise in the store. This is a warehouse. I'm getting a good deal. Oh, that was part of the shtick, the concept. No money, vendors are leery. The least they can afford is empty cardboard boxes with their labels on them. And that's exactly what we did. Pat Farah came up with the idea of persuading the vendors to give us empty boxes to put in the overheads. Now, the other thing I noticed earlier was, know you're there. We were so unknown, true story, that the first month we were open in May of 1979 in Atlanta, Bernie, now the retired chairman and CEO, would sit out there with a dollar bill and offer the customer $1 if they'd walk in the store and see what was in it. True story. True story. These are the things that we went through. But the fundamental underlying driver of this company has been and always will be our people. We can't touch the hundreds of millions of people that come into our store. We can't touch them. We need these people to advance what we are and who we are. But if we're going to do that, we can't say we can't say do as we tell you, not as we do. So, for example, Bernie taught me early on. Bear in mind, until we started Home Depot, I had some investments in retail, but I didn't know a hell of a lot about retail. Bernie's whole life was in retail. And it was Bernie's idea, and I can never, ever adequately give Bernie enough credit for what this company has become. But we all bought into it early, and we all knew one thing. If we all didn't sing from the same songbook, it wouldn't be a very nice chorus. We never, ever walked into a Home Depot store where we didn't push a few carts in ourselves. Ever. And what was important about that was the message we sent to our kids. We're in this together. Whenever I walk a Home Depot store, to this day, dear God, please let there be some litter on the floor so I can reach down and pick it up. Hopefully in front of 4 or 5 associates, to let them understand that I'm no better than they are, and we're partners. We don't call our employees, we call them associates, because we want them to think of as a partner. We subscribed fiercely and emotionally to equity ownership. We wanted all of our people to own stock. We had stock savings plans, we had options, we did all those things. The tragedy of what's happening, and I don't want to go off on a tangent because you want to talk about retail, but the tragedy of America today, believe it or not, because of what we did for our people back then, we couldn't find Home Depot today because we couldn't do it for them now. For example, the options are now expensed. And we would never have made money, and we would never have been able to go public, and we couldn't have raised the money. But let's go back to the people. Store managers, prayerfully, are all from the bottom up. They're all motivated by the same thing. We have the same driver. We have every imaginable incentive program we can to express to our people our gratitude for what they do. We've always encouraged our merchants to make mistakes. You say, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, we want them to make mistakes. So hopefully there won't be too many mistakes, but there'll be a lot of successes. In merchandising, we wanted them to reach. We wanted them to take a chance. But we wanted them to have the courage that when they realized they made a bad buy and it wasn't working, blow it out and move on. That's the key to excitement in a store. But they had to know a mistake was not a failure to their career, but rather could become a stepping stone. We encouraged our kids on the floor. If you think there's a better way to do it, give it a shot. So for example, I told a story last night at dinner. The Tuesday night before we opened, anybody from Long Island here? Elmont was one of our first stores on Long Island. It was the old Mills, Great Eastern Mills store, a huge box, low ceiling, mess. Does over $100 million today. It's God, let it stay a mess forever, okay? The kid that went to high school with my son didn't want to go to college, got a job at Home Depot. I'm with him on Tuesday night, and he's working in the plumbing department. Now, think about a plunger. When do you think about buying a plunger? Most of the time when the toilet is stopped up and you haven't got a plunger, right? You don't wake up in the morning on Saturday morning and say to your wife, hey, let's go to Home Depot and buy a plunger. You just don't do that. So this kid's telling me he didn't understand why we had the plungers in a box down on the floor below everything else in the plumbing department. And I said, Greg, what are you thinking of doing? He said, well, maybe if I displayed them. And I said, well, like what? He said, well, like if I put a pipe hook. These are the little U instruments that hold a pipe to a wall. If I put a pipe hook up and down the racking, and I put the plungers in the rack like that. I said, all right, so if you do it and it's wrong, nothing happens, what are you going to do? He said, I'll take them, I'll put them back in the box, I'll put them down below, I'll take the hooks down. I said, fine. I don't see much risk in that. Why don't you give it a shot? Soft opening was the next day. Grand opening was Thursday. Saturday morning, I went to the store. Guess what? We were out of plungers. Hey, a plunger. We may need a plunger. I don't have a plunger. Buy a plunger. By the way, extraordinary margins in a $5 plunger. You have no idea. Okay, extraordinary. The point is, it wasn't that he hit a home run. It was that it was okay if he struck out. And we always wanted our kids to know that they are special, that they can do well. And I think, with all of the respect to this technology, I'm fearful in retail that we get so caught up in automation and technology and all these things, we lose sight of the human touch and the true value of the human touch in a retail setting. That, believe it or not, here we are. I think it's safe to say we're one of the most successful retailers in America in the last 35 years. Only lately have we come to the party in technology. Only lately. In the last 5 years under Frank Blake, we made an enormous effort in supply chain management and in IT. But before that, it was blocking and tackling it all about the people and making our store as customer friendly as we could within the confines of only doing what we knew we could do. And the examples I can give you of the value of the kid in our store would blow your mind. I'll give you one more. This happened firsthand. A good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, wakes up on a Saturday morning. His wife's kept him awake all night because the faucet has been dripping in the bathroom and kept her awake, so she kicked him to keep him awake. Not fair that she should stay awake because she's bothered by drip, drip, drip. So he goes, he takes a... Did I drop something? Jesus Christ. Maybe I had an attack. I don't know. At this age, you don't know what's happening to you sometimes. So the guy takes the stem out of I don't want to get too complicated, but inside the faucet where the handle is, there's a stem. At the bottom of it, it's got a washer that when you shut it off, the washer presses against this little seat where the water comes out. That's how you shut a faucet off. He comes in and he says to the kid in plumbing, 24-year-old kid, he says, this goddamn thing kept me awake all night long. Please sell me a new one, and I got to go back and fix it. And the kid looks at him, he says, you don't need a new one of these. Yes, I do. It drip, 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 drip. He said, I'm telling you, sir, you don't need it. He's come on with me. So he takes him over where the pegboard is, and we have a little package of assorted washer sizes. 25 cents. He takes it off. Also good margins, by the way. Trust me, very good margins. Takes it off, opens it up, gets the faucet that fits into that particular thing, takes the brass screw off. Maybe it's because I'm over here by this. Takes the brass screw off, puts a new washer in, puts the screw back on, and says, here, go home and put it back. I'm sure it'll work fine. And it did. 2 months later, the wife wakes up and says to the husband, we need a new kitchen. And my friend says, we're going to Home Depot. So, oh no, there's a foo-foo place down the road here that does just kitchens and baths. Yeah, and they also screw you too, okay? We're going to Home Depot. So they go into the store and he insists on seeing this kid. And the kid, sir, I'm not in kitchen and baths, but let me take you to one of our associates in kitchens and baths. And you can tell them what you want, and I'm sure they'll help you. We sold him a $100,000 kitchen because the kid had the sense to help a customer, because we encouraged the kid to have the sense to help the customer. That will never, ever be replaced in retail, ever, ever, ever. Everything we've done has been driven by our kids. Our success, I can go on and on and on. So how do you do it? You do it by recognition. You do it by fairness. You make certain that you encourage your people to sell the customer not only what they want, but what they need. Selling a guy a $90 hammer to hang 3 little pictures on the wall, the guy will wake up one day and say, why did I spend this much money for a hammer? Eventually it'll get you. And it's contagious. The stories I could tell you about kindness in our stores of our associates to our associates would blow your mind. The most recent one is a fellow working out in Bayshore, Long Island, has a relative in the Philippines, his wife and his daughter, who he hasn't heard from for 8 days after the tsunami. Remember what happened in the fall in the Philippines? The store heard about it. Fortunately, they surfaced and they're fine. Now he wants to bring them over. These kids who don't make a lot of money, they do well, but they don't make a lot of money, put together a kitty to pay to bring that man's daughter and wife to America. That story spread like wildlife all over this company. Wildlife. It was unbelievable, the response and the reaction of the people. Now, let's go back to the basics. You got to be in stock. You got to be right on price. You got to give the customer choices. You got to be run efficiently. This is all truisms. These, in any business, these are things that if you don't do them, you're dead. The thing that will differentiate you, whether you're making chocolate-covered strawberries or croissants or selling plumbing products, is the attitude and the impact you personally or your associates have on your customer. Make the effort. Go the last mile. Go the extra mile. If you got it, we tried something, and unfortunately, the world is not perfect. We had a no questions asked, money back guaranteed policy, cash. And we got ripped off like you wouldn't believe it, principally by these gangs that would go in and steal merchandise and then come back. The policy now, by the way, I've been out of the company 5 years because Bernie and I set up the rule that at 73, you leave the company. You leave the board and you leave the company, and it's nice that way because you got young people coming along and they deserve their shot at the brass ring. But the point is, we've always tried to be consumer friendly. That's a given. Retail is not for everybody. There's a lot of grumpy people who don't like being around people. There's a lot of people who get annoyed when you ask them a question. So you can imagine if you ask them the same question 3 times, how pissed off they're going to get. That doesn't work in retail. If they ask you 10 times, be as pleasant when you answered it the 10th time as you did the first time. There's no magic here. And people say, is that all you guys did? Trust me, try and do it. Sounds easy. But there's a lot to the effort. There's a lot to the notion that you inscribe into each of your kids that they're special and they make the difference. They are the difference. So everything you're doing about those kids, whether it's benefits, whether it's pay, one of the things, there's a lot of noise about one of the previous leaders at Home Depot, who I brought in, Bob Nardelli, that he was not the guy to run Home Depot. Well, the first 4 years Bob Nardelli was at Home Depot, everything he touched, he made better. And one of the things he did was to create a program called Success Sharing. That's one of the greatest things that ever happened. And let me tell you how good it works. Every store has a plan. It pays out every 6 months. We have 2,500 stores in the company. You ready? January 31, the 6 months ending January 31 this year, every Home Depot store made or beat plan. Every store success shared. Every kid got a bonus. Okay? I mean, it's the best money you'll ever spend. And at the end of the day, if you got the right people and you treat them fairly and you let them understand that they're precious, that they matter, that they make a difference, watch and see the wonders of what you'll get from that person. I had my own measure for store managers. It was very simple. We give our associates aprons with their names on them. And I used to say to a store manager at the store managers' meetings, you want to know how successful you are? It's very easy. Put all your people who work with you, not for you. Nobody ever worked for me. A lot of people worked with me. That's the other thing, the mindset you have towards the people that work with you. Put them all in a room without their aprons on. And if they've been there at least 3 months, and you don't know them by your first name, you fail. By their first name, you fail. There's nothing more profound in the way of respect and recognition than to know somebody by their name. I tell you that with great concern, because at my age, I'm forgetting my own name, so I'm really having a hell of a problem. But I still keep trying. But in terms of running a business, in terms of motivating people, in terms of getting people to go that extra mile, it begins with your respect for them. We developed, midway through the company's history, 20 years ago, we developed a horrible disease. And the disease was our store managers were staying in their offices. And that's bad. Store managers should be on the floor. How do you learn who your good people are, who needs work? How is the customer reacting? How about this setup? How's it doing? How about that end cap? Or all the, a store manager is really the fulcrum. So the first thing we did is we issued an edict, all the doors had to come off store managers' offices. So now their office is wide open, so you know when they're sitting in there. Didn't change much. Here's how far we went. We put their desks on 2 cinder blocks, the legs. So if they were sitting at their desk, all they were looking at was a cubby hole in their desk. They didn't go in their office much anymore. But you have to do these things to drive the point about the importance of the hand touch. I don't take anything away from all this magnificent technology. I don't take a thing away from it. But nothing will ever replace the human condition in a retail setting. If I had to ascribe 90% of our success at Home Depot to one thing, 90%, it would be the kids on the floor. They're the people that really made this success happen to the extent that it happened. And Bernie will agree with that, and Arthur will, and Frank talks about it all the time. And that's why to this day I still walk stores and I go in and I schmooze with the kids. I'll tell you one more little humorous story. My father was a plumber, so I have an affinity for plumbing products. Meaning whenever I go to a Home Depot store, I walk down the plumbing line. I do that at least. So I'm in there one day, and we've got these different hot water heaters, different sizes and recovery rates and so forth. And there's 2 guys talking, and I see them, they're customers, and I said, you buying a hot water heater? Yeah, we're confused. What's this? I said, well, let me tell you about this, that, and the other thing. So just out of my eye, I see a kid with an apron on. I said, excuse me, young man, these fellas, he didn't know who I was. these fellas here talking about a hot water heater. Can you give me any? He said, absolutely, sir, thank you. And so I give the kid to the guys, and I walk away, and I'm still walking down. About a half an hour, I'm in another aisle, and this kid that was in the plumbing department is now talking to another associate, and I walk past him. And I guess my hearing is still pretty good. I get a little ways down the aisle, and the kid said, you see that old bastard? He tried to sell a couple of customers a hot water heater in the store. Now, when he found out, he was a little bothered, but that was okay. That was okay. As long as they know we're going to celebrate them and respect them and appreciate them, it'll work. And that's the key. I'll take some questions, and I'll be on my way back to Palm Beach. Any questions? Everybody's happy. I guess they're hungry. They want to get to lunch. Yes. You have a mic for her? Or?
I shout loud.
Go ahead.
So my question is about education, because obviously you actually do a lot of training, but do you feel there's a certain level of training you need for someone in retail before they reach you? And I know you've been very involved in education in New York City as well.
Right. We hire kids with zero retail experience. And we start, one of the worst things to do is to break bad habits. So the benefit of a raw kid, so to speak, is they come a virgin. And so you can teach them from the bottom up. You can teach them the importance of, for example, one of the things we taught the kids, never to say, can I help you? Because the customer can say no. We taught the kids to say, hi, how you doing? Well, you don't say no to hi, how you doing? Right? I'm doing good. How about you? What are you working on? Well, I'm thinking about painting the wall. Oh, you think, and now you're talking to them about, because the margins are not in just the paint. I mean, you football the paint, but the brushes and the thinners and the tarpaulins, and all of a sudden the guys, and by the way, the guy's grateful because when he gets home, if he didn't have those things, God damn it, it's 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon, and the kid didn't tell me I needed a tarpaulin. Okay, so where they've been, by the way, our experience has not been very good in bringing people in from the outside with retail experience to be managers. Not been very good at all. Best experience we've had, believe it or not, is in grocery retail, where we brought people in from retail and grocery. That worked. So, example, and I love the story because I had a lot to do with this young man. This kid got out of the Marine Corps, Camp Pendleton, California, 20 years ago. His wife lived outside of Camp Pendleton, a family. He went to live with the family until he got a job. And I guess he wasn't getting a job fast enough for the mother-in-law, so one morning he came down to breakfast, and in the cereal bowl she'd cut out an ad, Home Depot looking for employees. So before he had to eat his celery, before he ate his cereal, he had to read the ad. His name was Joe McFarland. He went down to the Home Depot store. He got a job. Joe McFarland today is the president of the Western Division. He runs 700 stores. You never know where you're going to find gems. You never know. And I think if there's a hallmark to our company, it's that. Okay? And we want these kids to hear about these stories. I said last night, I'll give you one more. I'm an unabashed capitalist. And if you heard me ranting and raving this morning after Utah, I beat up on them about regulation and how they're driving us nuts. Home Depot today has 3,000 people who started in the lot, pushing carts in and helping customers. 3,000. That are multimillionaires. Isn't that wonderful? That means more to me than how Bernie and Arthur and I have done. This is how capitalism works. You just have to give it a chance to work and don't burden it with excessive regulation and all these other things that go on. Okay, anything else? Yes, sir, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Tia. I'm a student at the University of Arizona, and I wanted to ask, I know that's really easy to motivate those people that are right for the company with rewards.
You say it's easy?
But how about the people that are working that aren't so motivated? How do you go to motivate them and challenge them to do better?
Well, and this may be an answer you're not going to be pleased with. Retail is not for everybody. And after a manager or a department head has made every effort to bring the associate along, and so to speak, the dog doesn't hunt, you got to say goodbye. You don't have the luxury of motivating a lot of people, and they're all making the effort. First of all, the person that's got that mindset won't stick around because it's not a happy environment for them. He looks around, everybody else is having a good time. And by the way, retail is a tough business. You work sometimes, you got to work weekends. You got our stores are open from 7 until 11 or 12, 7 days a week. And so you got work a couple of weekends a month. This requires a lot of effort. But when you've made the effort, you've really given it your best shot. Now that's the challenge is to be sure you're being honest with yourself that you've really made the effort. And you don't get the reaction or the response or the result. You're doing the person the best favor in the world by telling them to move on. Because they're not going to succeed. And they're going to see all their buddies moving up the ladder. And they're not going to be happy. So it's a win-win. They're going to find, hopefully they're going to find an environment where they can do better. And you're going to have a spot for somebody who's going to want to be here and who's going to want to have the fun of being here and succeeding here. That's simple. Anything else? Thank you very much. By the way, this is a hell of a program. This really, I had no idea what I was getting into, but this is one hell of a program. And I think it's wonderful that you're grooming all these competitors for Macy's. I think it's